Are you all ready to go? All right, sorry for being a little late. The mayor made it, yes.
Oh, I was like, I didn't see her at first. I was like, did the mayor make it? What are you doing, guys? I see.
I scooted right in.
All right, don't be shy, everyone. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Are you all ready? Oh, you look really good. Well done. Yeah, looking good. Well spread. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is still morning, right? Yes. Okay, good. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I want to start out by thanking a number of folks before I say a few words about the executive operating budget. First, I want to thank our finance staff, Director Dave Schmidtke, Budget Manager Christine Coe, and the entire staff of the Finance Department. They put a tremendous amount of time and energy into putting together the entire city budget and then managing it throughout the course of the year and then starting the cycle all over again. So it's hours and hours of work. And in particular this year, I want to thank them because they've done a lot of work to make the city budget more accessible to folks, both in the sense of being able to find and interact with it on the city's website, but also in the sense of trying to break it down in a way that's more understandable to folks who don't do budgeting as their main thing. So I really appreciate the work that staff have done to make our budget more transparent and more accessible to our community, and of course the hours and hours of work that they put in to putting the budget together. I also want to thank the fire department, Chief Carbon, the crew here at Fire Station 12, and the crew of Medic 2 for joining us today. Of course, always want to thank folks in fire for being there for our entire community day in and day out, and being ready to do whatever is needed to keep our community safe. I also want to thank Alders Ugair, Figueroa Cole, Madison, and Martinez Rutherford for joining us today. Today, I am releasing the 2026 Executive Operating Budget Proposal in its entirety. We have been highlighting key elements of the operating budget over the past several weeks. 2 weeks ago, I talked about investing in the purpose-built homeless shelter on Bartellon Drive. This shelter will address a critical need for Madison and its neighboring communities. Last week, I announced that in order to ensure that all of Madison has strong neighborhoods with access to city resources, that we will be fully funding the library and park operations for the Imagination Center on the northeast side. And today, we are here at Fire Station 12 because public safety is one of the most critical services that local governments provide to our residents. Madison is adding close to 5,000 new residents every year, and that's expected to continue through 2030. The Madison Fire Department's calls for service have nearly doubled since 2005. Last year alone, Madison Fire Department responded to close to 44,000 incidents across our community. EMS calls accounted for 67% of these incidents. It's about 30,000 requests for ambulances each year, and the demand is just growing. There were more than 200 times last year when every single one of our ambulances was out responding to a call. And we have several units who are approaching 5,000 runs per year. That's not sustainable as our community continues to grow. And in fact, this level of call volume is already taking a toll on the paramedics and firefighters who dedicate their careers to serving the public during emergency situations. And that's why I'm announcing today that my 2026 executive operating budget provides funding for a 10th ambulance company. This will allow us to maintain a high level of response capacity while also helping to recruit and retain fire department staff by addressing the stress and overwork on our current staff. It will add 9 additional paramedics to the Madison Fire Department to staff the 10th ambulance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The new ambulance is one of my key priorities in 2026 because it's an investment in public safety as Madison grows, but it's also the right thing to do for our dedicated city employees. Madison's local economy remains strong, and compensation in the public sector is struggling to keep up with inflation. And that's why I'm proud that my administration has reached wage parity for the majority of city employees, and that parity is aligned with our collective bargaining agreements reached with the Madison public safety unions. And the 2026 executive operating budget keeps city employment competitive with a 3% wage increase for general municipal employees. I'm also happy to report that the Common Council recently adopted a new collective bargaining agreement with our Metro Transit operators and mechanics that will help us recruit and retain hardworking men and women that make our bus system go. Teamsters Local 120 overwhelmingly ratified the new contract with an approval of 94% of its members. We have an extremely dedicated workforce that serves Madison residents with professionalism, and we are proud to do right by them. City workers are an essential part of our community, and I hope that we can help to set the standard for how all workers should be treated in our community. Turning to the rest of the budget, I want to thank the Madison electorate and Madison voters for supporting the funding referendum last year. That additional revenue from the referendum was critical in providing flexibility in our city budget while we continue to lobby for fairer treatment of local governments at the state level. In the last state budget, while it was far from perfect, the City of Madison did receive $2.4 million more annually in reimbursement for the services, including the fire service, that the city provides to state government for their properties. This is a significant step in the right direction and is hopefully a sign that the state legislature is starting to understand that making up for decades of underfunding local governments across Wisconsin isn't and doesn't have to be a partisan issue. The successful referendum was a reminder that Madison residents value the vital services that city government provides, including a professional and adequately staffed fire department. It's also a reminder that we must be prudent with taxpayer dollars and be as efficient as possible in providing services. So I'm happy to announce that the tax rate increase in my 2026 budget proposal is the lowest in 40 years. The average value home will see property taxes increase by less than $3 a month or around $30 a year. We are also strategically using the city's reserves to help cover the structural deficit gap that state law has imposed on us for the past 14 years. This will keep our fund balance healthy, help to continue to keep property taxes in check in future years, and delay the need to add new fees to the municipal services bill. The full details of the 2026 executive operating budget are now available online, and I'm looking forward to hearing input from the community and from the Common Council as we move forward into the final phases of our annual budget process. Thank you again for being here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Public safety obviously is a main initiative for your office. There have been some recent gun violence and shootings in Madison area, not only last week but also over the weekend. Have you talked to the police department, the new chief, about gun violence and how you can help facilitate more funds and resources for MPD, and where are you right now with trying to help in that arena for safety for your citizens?
I want to be clear that there's no level of gun violence that's acceptable in our community. But overall, the trends in Madison are in the right direction. Gun violence is reducing and is less this year than it was last year, and we're continuing to see those numbers drop. So I think that our efforts, both in the police department and in our violence prevention unit, have been very effective, and we are going to continue to do that work. I meet with our violence prevention team and our community development department and the police department every other week to talk specifically about violence prevention, and often those conversations about how do we continue to do the work to prevent gun violence. And I think that the work that the police department is doing with stratified policing is very effective, and Chief Patterson is committed to continuing that work. He has not expressed the need for further resources for it at this point in time, although certainly I'm open to him making that request in the future if he does need it. But I think perhaps more importantly is the investment that we need to make around policing to make sure that, for example, when somebody is involved with gun violence, that it stops there and doesn't go any farther. So the work that our violence prevention unit does, I think, is critical in preventing retaliation, in supporting victims, and to making sure that violence is isolated and doesn't spread. So it's not just investments in the police department, it's also investments in violence prevention and community development and resources for folks who are vulnerable to gun violence to make sure that they don't engage then in a cycle of violence any further, and that our entire community can back away from violence as a way to solve problems, but rather turn to more productive things.
And to follow up, Mayor, is there any increase in the proposed budget for Madison Police Department for this issue?
No, I believe we will be investing more in the violence prevention unit this year, which is housed in public health. The police department is receiving the cost to continue increase that they would expect. There's no difference in their budget for that. One item that that the police department did ask for and we did grant in this budget is the ability to experiment with part-time positions as a way to help retain and recruit folks who maybe aren't able to do a full shift because they have family responsibilities, childcare, what it might be. And so they asked for the ability to have some flexibility in creating those positions, which we granted in this budget, and I assume and hope that the council will approve, so that they can experiment with ways to retain some of our really talented folks who might be mid-career, starting families, or maybe they have elderly parents, and they just need a little flexibility in their schedule. So hopefully that will be helpful to them as well. Other questions? Yeah.
With the additional ambulance, are there going to be any significant changes to CARES or any other mental health resources?
No, so the ambulances obviously are separate from the CARES service. We do continue to provide CARES, and that's been a very successful service. As you know, we're currently experimenting with CARES running into Sun Prairie as well, and we're in the process of looking at those data and having conversations. Mayors around us have continued to express their desire for CARES services, so I think that will be a conversation that we continue to have about what it would take to support growth in that system, not just to serve Madison, but to serve the region. But at this point in time, we're not projecting an increase in funding for CARES.
To your ambulance initiative, can you tell me where these services will be concentrated in, or help clarify how this improvement or this more services, where will it be strategically placed so that folks can get the services that they need?
So Chief hasn't decided where he wants to place the ambulance yet, and that's going to be his decision. But the importance of adding this ambulance is really to make sure that in those times of high call volume that we have the resource available somewhere in the city. Right? As I said earlier, there's too many times during the course of the year where every ambulance is out on a call, and if you get that one more call, there isn't an ambulance to go to it. So having that extra resource is really important. And what we're also seeing is just that the call volume and the pace of the calls is really difficult for our paramedics in terms of that they are just like working flat out. And so having an extra ambulance to spread that load farther will help prevent burnout in our paramedics, and help us retain our current paramedics, but also recruit more, which we always need more paramedics in the fire service. So this is both about making sure that we have coverage across the city when we need it, but also making sure that we can maintain the workforce that we need to run all of our ambulances, not just the new one. For the ambulance? So the budget contains funding for the ambulance to come online, I think, in the last quarter of next year. So they will be, in the fire department, they will be doing the work to ramp up, hire those positions, make sure that we have paramedics that are trained to be able to staff it when it does go online. Other questions? All right. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate it. And please make sure that you check online for the full executive budget. And the council will be engaging with both the capital and the operating budget at future finance committee meetings, and then, of course, at council meetings in November. Thank you. Thank you. Chief, cover the order.